let me ask you this question. Have you gone through other transitions since that time where you made a real deliberate choice to focus in one area or another, or to felt like you were stepping out in faith?
Well, I think that, one example could maybe be that I was, in my early 20s, I was very confused about, I knew it could have something to do with talent or lack of talent or whatever, but I was confused in the sense that how do you get your own style musically? And what is it that you recognize B.B. King or you recognize whoever you're listening to? And instead of pursuing this and asking all these questions, I found out, at least it worked for me, that I had to stop learning. Not stop learning, you never stop learning, of course, but stop trying to learn new stuff all the time, but to get better at what you already know. Because, and maybe most importantly, to sort out, if you can say that, to sort out in your knowledge, to get a clearer expression.
Is it the idea of finding your own voice that's often
exactly
stated?
Yeah. Yes. And I think one thing that really helps and I don't say I have that problem, but if you get too good at playing something, then the possibilities, they're not endless, obviously, but there are a lot of possibilities to musically attack a song or whatever, or approach a song. So you need to kind of sort out the ideas to get a clearer musical expression. And that is sometimes, I really hear that a lot in young players, and it's supposed to be that way. Like myself, who learned a lot of stuff, but it's unclear what they're doing, and it was unclear what I was doing. I don't hear that when I hear Mark Knopfler or David Gilmour or whoever. Yeah. And there's a reason for that, and it's not only talent. They really thought about how their expression, what they wanted to present to people. Yeah.
Welcome to Titans of Transition, featuring real-life stories, anecdotes, and inspiration about pivotal career moments from leaders who have been there.
I'm really pleased to welcome Steffen Schackinger. Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah, that's about it, yeah.
How would you say it?
Schackinger.
Schackinger.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's more like a German pronunciation, yeah.
There you go. Well, I'm really pleased to have you here today on Titans of Transition. Thank you so much, Steph, for agreeing to come on. As I was explaining to you before we got on, I started following you, I think probably 8 or 9 years ago. I came across you on YouTube, and I was just blown away by your artistry. And very inspiring, shared it with my guitar buddies. Also, you influenced me in terms of a guitar choice, which you may see in the background. Yeah. I have a couple Sirs now. You were playing Sirs a lot earlier. I know you obviously play lots of different instruments. You play Gibson, Fender, Sirs, lots of different things, but the tone, oh my goodness, just fantastic. All right, so I'll stop geeking out on guitar stuff. And just to get started, tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe, for having me. Well, I'm in the center of Denmark, actually, right in the middle, in a city called Odense, and that's Odense in Danish. So it's kind of in the center of Denmark, and I'm sitting here in my studio where I do most of my work, musical work. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. Now I did read in your bio that you were born on an island. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually this island, the island of Funen. Yeah, okay. and the city of Odense is on that island. Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty ignorant in the U.S. sometimes about world geography, so sometimes we need a little help.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about your musical journey, your journey also in deciding on music as a career. I think, start from early age. I know you kind of went and started studying classical instruments and styles, and then moved into what you're doing today.
Yeah, I actually, my father was a great classical player. He played the French horn, and was conducting a lot. So a lot of my childhood was spent, at a symphony orchestra, listening to rehearsals and stuff like that. Most of the time, I just, fell asleep and was crawling around the floor. But of course, it influenced me in a lot of ways. And he tried early on to make me play the violin, and I got started around, I think I was 6 years old, yeah. But after a while, I can't remember just exactly how long, there were other instruments that caught my attention, and it was piano and cello. And since that, I've kind of stuck with the piano and cello. I'm still playing those instruments. And around the age of, I think, 11, I started to play the guitar, and it was a nylon string, like a Spanish guitar, that kind, classical guitar, yeah. And in many ways, I remember piano from compared to violin was much easier. I mean, not if you talk playing like a virtuoso or something on piano, but just, playing a chord is in tune right away. But it's completely different of course, on a violin, where...
fretless.
And everybody knows that it sounds, and it should sound like that. But every beginner sounds awful on a violin. but you can learn a chord in 3 seconds. So I think that kind of I really like that. So cello came in a bit later, and of course it has some of the same challenges as the violin because you have no frets and so on. But still, those stringed instruments, the larger or the bigger they get, the easier it is to be just about on the correct note. I mean, violin, it's much more difficult because it's much finer in the tuning and stuff. So, yeah. But then it was, in the end, it was guitar that really took me away. Yeah.
Do you still, you still play piano and these other instruments? I know that, we'll touch on this a little later, your move into ethnic music, and you put a piece out recently where it was, you were playing several instruments in it. Yeah. So obviously you're still active. Do you tend to compose on one instrument versus another?
Sometimes I do that, yeah. I mean, if I don't feel inspired when I'm sitting with a guitar, that happens sometimes. I mean, then I grab a cello. I also play some Greek bouzouki. You also have an Irish bouzouki, but I play the Greek bouzouki. I play Indian Sitar. I could, one of my songs some years ago was just basically an Indian sitar that I was just, noodling around and found this drone and this groove going, and then I recorded that and then put guitars on top of it. So, I mean, I guess like in all other aspects, no matter what you do, the inspiration can come from anything, really. Yeah.
So going back to your original roots and your influences of your father, did you play in symphonies? Did you play violin? Did you do symphony music or anything like that?
No, I never got good enough on the violin. I stopped too early. I play a lot still in symphony with symphony orchestras, but on guitar. And typical these crossover projects, it can be anything. They want to play Queen or they want to play, stuff like that. And I played a lot of these rock shows where you kind of, which has this classical flavor.
A very inspiring, and I guess, as you were saying, when you switch from one instrument to another, if you're not hearing what you're feeling in your head or something's not coming together, sometimes just moving to another platform, if you will, a musical platform, will be inspiring enough that then you can then apply it to guitar or whatever. So curious, now I think I read in your bio that you actually went all in on music. Did you drop out of school, or was there something like that happened?
Yeah, I did actually drop out of what's called a gymnasium here when you're around, 16, 17, 16 years old. Yeah, I didn't finish my last year because I wanted to pursue the music. And my mother was, she was a teacher and a professor in Italian and English and stuff like that. And of course, the sensible thing to do And I realize that, I know that, but it is to, get educated in a proper way, because it gives you more possibilities. But I had to do that. I mean, I just, I had to pursue that dream and had to have enough time to practice. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting because a number of people that I've talked to, this whole theme of transitions and coming to a point where you make a decision, it's kind of from the heart. There are moments where things become very clear, and it may seem from the outside to others that you're taking a gigantic risk, but really in some ways it's much riskier to hold back than to get in alignment with what you feel you're being called to. So I'm glad you stepped out and dedicated your time. Yeah. At that time, I imagine were you already playing in a band with your guitar? And
yeah, I played at that age and much younger also, I played with a lot of bands. I don't know if I was conscious about it like I am now, but playing with bands is really what gave me the most experience. I mean, you can play whatever at your own home and look and show yourself, look what I can play, but it only counts when you're out there playing on a stage with a band and learn how to react to other musicians and what that they play and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I played in 6 bands when I was 16 years old. Yeah.
And were you starting to tour?
Yeah, well? I was playing a lot of gigs, and I actually, with some success, I tried to make a living of it already then, because I had to. That was my only income. So I played a lot of gigs, at everything from mid-sized venues to small clubs and whatever. Yeah, the possibility was. Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Have you gone through other transitions since that time, say you're 16 or so, where you made a real deliberate choice to focus in one area or another, or to felt like you were stepping into a little bit of an unknown or stepping out in faith?
Well, I think that, one example could maybe be that I was... in my early 20s, I was very confused about, I knew it could have something to do with talent or lack of talent or whatever, but I was confused in the sense that how do you get your own style musically? And what is it that you recognize B.B. King or you recognize whoever you're listening to? And instead of pursuing this and asking all these questions, I found out, at least it worked for me, that I had to not stop learning, you never stop learning, of course, but stop trying to learn new stuff all the time, but to get better at what you already know. Because, and maybe most importantly, to sort out, if you can say that, to sort out in your knowledge, to get a clearer expression. Because
is it the idea of finding your own voice? That's often
exactly
stated. Yeah.
Yes, and I think one thing that really helps if and I don't say I have that problem, but if you get too good at playing something, then the possibilities, they're not endless, obviously, but there are a lot of possibilities to kind of musically attack a song or whatever, or approach a song. So you need to kind of sort out the ideas to get a clearer musical expression. And that is sometimes, I really hear that a lot in young players, and it's supposed to be that way. Like myself, who learned a lot of stuff, but it's unclear what they're doing, and it was unclear what I was doing. And I don't hear that when I hear Mark Knopfler or David Gilmour or whoever. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. And it's not only talent. It's kind of, they really thought about, how their expression, what they wanted to present to people. Yeah.
So you think it's fair to say that, there's a certain amount of investment you have to do to get the freedom to be able to be expressive the way you want, so that those, your basic chops are there, that you don't stumble on certain things that you want to do. But once that's out of the way you know scales, you know where you are, you know what the chording is underneath of you, so you can solo. You're not. That's not in here. It's coming from a different place.
Yeah.
And then at that point in time, it sounded like there was this point where you realize that it's like, okay, I can keep getting extremely technical, but I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm not able to express. I need to focus more on the expression and finding my voice and less upon maybe the technique.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. And of course, sometimes I still struggle because I get ideas. You know, when I'm lying in bed or whatever, I can hear stuff that I need to try and play, and sometimes I can see how I'm supposed to play it, but sometimes it gets difficult. I mean, technical to play. I mean, obviously you can play stuff on a piano that's really hard on guitar and the other way around, and so. But yes, and I don't appreciate technical music more than non-technical. I don't care as long as it's good music. I mean. I've listened to and that old, we don't have to go into that, but that old talk there was in the 90s about, I remember when the drummers I played with, they said that, what is he called, the guy from the States, Dave Weckl, he couldn't play the drums, they said, and you know, and they all said it because they couldn't do what he does. I mean, yeah, it was very technical and very complex fusion style and such, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as it's good music. I mean,
you know, that's interesting. You know, even with my very limited experience compared to you, one of the things I learned by playing in a church band was, you know, you start out being a little bit of a garage band player where you have to completely chord every note, you have to play it every beat. And then later on, you realize that when you're in an ensemble that you really need to simplify things sometimes. Of course, there's those moments, and I don't really solo very much, but there's those moments, of course, where you're out there, you have the musical floor, fine. But when you're playing, you're like you said earlier, you're listening to the other musicians and making sure you fit in the mix, and making sure, you know, I find myself having to change my voicings often based upon what the lead guitar player is doing. Oh, he's going up the neck, I'm going to go down, you know, or oh, he's doing something very complex, I need to lay back. And those kinds of things, I think I hear a lot of music that if I listen to it just for technical skill, I get blown away. I think how many notes going to, you know, shredding, right? So that's kind of exciting, but what's the musical value? Sometimes I don't particularly connect with it as much. Other times, people like Dave Gilmour and some of these other musicians, they can play quarter notes, and just in the way they play them, it's just inspiring. You know?
Yeah, I agree completely. And yeah, it's true. And, you know, I've heard B.B. King play one note and, you know, and maybe it's the easiest thing in the world, but I can't sound like him. So, I mean, so that's good. And that's because there are, you know, a lot of personality in music, and that's just a wonderful thing. I mean, I really think so.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think that drew me to your music, you know, just to kind of come back to this point, is that I heard things, so I'll use some examples because they're kind of in my head. So your electric guitar artistry piece, I heard variations on your theme going through there. You know, you're playing like a theme line, then you play it up, then you're playing over the top of yourself, and I think you're harmonizing a third off.
Yeah.
And you dynamically have done such creative things with that song, like towards the end of it. I know this is very old for you, okay, but I listened to that a lot. You know, and then dynamically I think, oh, he's coming in for a landing, he's ending this song. All of a sudden, no, you're going right back at it. So, you know, very, very inspiring. And then talking about the sort of the simpler pieces, there's a couple pieces on there, like Perfect Waves, which starts out like with a little kind of a percussive, you know, picking pattern. And it's just, it's very full, even though it's very simple. Doesn't make any sense. You know, so yeah, very inspiring. Just tons of Tons of fanboy going back to you, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
What kind of, if you were to think back, you know, on your journey, think back to when you were 17 or 18, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Or would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, I would probably, I mean, some of the stuff I already did. I mean, but if I had to, if I could go back in time and tell myself or tell somebody else right now, I would say play the blues, play some blues because it's a good foundation. It's a good foundation because it has, for instance, you know, basic 12-bar blues is, it's good for learning phrasing, and it's good to have things like a blues to jam with other people or whatever. I mean, so that's a very good good thing. And I think, like I said earlier, learn as much as possible when you're young, different styles and techniques, and play in bands, because that's where you get to use the stuff musically, and what we talked about, reacting to other musicians. And I think people should get teaching. I did that also, but only when I needed inspiration. That was the most important times, because when you play an instrument, everybody knows that sometimes you get stuck. I mean, and play the same things again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And if you
sort of break out of the box, then is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like I said earlier, when you learn a lot, then you have to learn to sort out what you know to get a clearer musical expression. But I think, and then of course be kind and generous, because if you have somewhat of a success on the internet, then you will wake up all the internet trolls, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just how it is, and it's really interesting. I learned early on, because I was told from my record label in the US that don't ever get into a discussion with someone who doesn't like you or your music, because it's wonderful and at the same time scary that the feelings that music can bring out in people. I mean, it's not only politics or the environment or, you know, all these, but it's actually also music. And it is great and also scary that you can actually get, you know, hate because you post a song on, and you can also get love, and you get both.
Yeah.
If enough
it's
people
very passionate.
Yeah.
People can be very passionate either way.
But it can be the same when you're doing a show like this or whatever. I mean, people can, but you know how it is. I mean, that's really interesting, but that's just how it is, I guess. So I learned that it doesn't bother me. I mean, the first month, many years ago, or 3 months, maybe I was like, what's going on? But then now it's okay. I don't care. So,
Well, that's interesting. So when did you make the decision to put yourself out there, and what platform did you start on?
Yeah, I think, actually, I've always been told that I really have to do more on the social media. I've always thought that I don't want to, I mean, this, you know, if I'm drinking a cup of coffee, how can that be interesting to anyone? I mean, I wouldn't want to watch it. I mean, but then again, I realized at some point I had to do something. Yeah, but because it's I was always told, I'm still told, you have to post something every day.
Oh, wow.
You just grab an instrument or whatever, and then just pick a chord and, I'm going to rehearse today and whatever. And I always thought to myself, well, that can't be interesting. So I really suck at that. But at some point, I realized that I have to do something. So I got this deal in the US with Candy Rat Records, and they... We had this deal that I sent him the videos, and he posted on his own channel, so I didn't even make one myself. But then after a while, I made a Facebook page. You know, I did a Facebook page, and now I have an Instagram. And I found out I have a YouTube channel that I forgot about, but I will start posting on that now.
Yeah, it's interesting. But what you're saying, I mean, I think there's names that pop into my mind. You know, like Pete Thorne and his coffee.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
hours
yeah.
long. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And then there's this other gentleman, I don't know if you know Rick Beato, who
Yeah,
does like,
yeah, I know.
construction.
Great guy.
I mean, the amount of time, and he has great interviews with artists. Very, so I track those things, but it takes an enormous amount of time to do that sort of thing as often as these guys. And they might start out on their own, but it doesn't take very long. They have to have help. Otherwise, you're kind of, wouldn't it erode the time you're spending on your actual music?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, and it's, I know it really sounds, it sounds a little annoying, but I'm also a type that loves to be in the center of things, but I also hate it at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah. And I know it sounds a little spoiled, because you can be an artist and say, I want to be kept a secret and I don't want to do anything. But then all of a sudden you pop up with a new song. But I really have both those, opposite feelings. I love it and I hate it at the same time. But of course we live in the time we live in now, and it's part of the game and part of the deal. That's how it is. I mean,
have you toured at all in the States at this point?
Not in the States. Yeah, all over Europe, and of course in Denmark, and also in China. With both with my own stuff, not the trio, but with my own stuff and theater stuff and other bands. I mean, I remember I have some great memories from touring with a band. I was part of a band called Mercy with these. The guys were like 10, 12 years older than me, and we supported CC Top, and Deep Purple on their tour in Europe, and it was great stuff to meet these guys. I also had lessons from the guitar player from Deep Purple, Steve Morse.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So this was a great, nice guys, and a great experience.
Well, speaking of that, and there were some questions that came up about, who do you think were your key influencers? I mean, you had a very long list, obviously.
Yeah.
Many people you like and follow, but do you think that there's some key guitarists that have influenced the way you compose or maybe the way you play?
Yeah, but I would say, I can mention some guitarists, but I would also say that nowadays I'm practicing technique every time I stumble into a technical problem or issue, but mostly I practice composition. I just practice getting better at writing music. Like guys like, I started out with the guys like Mark Knopfler and only playing with my fingers and not using a pick, and it was of course Clapton, like so many others. It was Steve Morse, actually, Eric Johnson, but it was also other guys like jazz musicians like Miles Davis, and a composer like Stephen Sondheim, who does interesting stuff, but of course classical. I mean, Johann Sebastian Bach, and I've really been into a lot of, and when I listen to musicians nowadays, often it's not guitarists. It can be a songwriter, just to get a more modern, view on stuff. It could be like this guy doing electronic music, James Blake, or you have this other Sufjan Stevens. I mean, there's some interesting. It's really a mixed bag, so it's not just guitar music. Yeah.
Well, thanks for clarifying that. It's very broad, just like your musical journey. You didn't just sort of land on guitar, so you're bringing things in from all different places.
Yeah.
An interesting thing came up when I was talking to this guy last week, Michael Gettle. He actually hand wrote out, composed on paper.
Yeah.
And he would, play a few things, go, oh, that's not quite right. And then he would erase and fix. And he was very transparent with me. He said, I got to the point where I was about a week or two out from going up and recording, and I tried to play what I composed, and I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I had to work on it. Has that ever happened to you, where you sort of have an idea where you just go, man, I got to work on this because I can't quite get it?
Many times. I mean, I read music quite well. I'm not the fastest in the world, but I'm quite I'm okay at it, because And it's also it's not important to play good, of course, an instrument that you read music, but it's important in certain in certain situations, like if you're going to play with a symphony orchestra or in theaters, then you get 120 pages, and it's really a long way home if you don't read music. I mean, then you have to. But But I often write it down. I don't do it in hand anymore that much. I have to admit that. I use, Sibelius or something. Yeah, I have some programs I use, and sometimes, but even though if I'm supposed to read something I wrote down 9 years ago, then it's sometimes very difficult, because if it was a difficult passage, I'm reading, what did I write this, and what is, but then it takes some minutes to get it into the system again. But yeah.
And so do you use that? I know you sell transcriptions and you sell your tabs. Do you have the tabs converted for you then through a program? Is that what you do?
No, I write it down.
Really?
Yeah, I found out that it's really difficult to write. I remember I released that song City Lights, and I wrote it down. Tune. I wrote down the YouTube version. But then I found out that really going back, forth, that there was a lot of small mistakes, even though I played it myself. So I started a collaboration with this young guy from Australia, who's also a guitar player. And he helped me. He was like an editor, and we sent it back, forth, and we kept on finding mistakes for a month, and at the end released it. But I found out that when Hal Leonard and all these big companies, when they do this, they have a lot more people involved in just one score, and even there you find a lot of mistakes. I remember, and that's interesting.
Things that people wouldn't notice them, but you notice them.
I notice them because it can make a piece of music much more difficult if the hand position is wrong, and you have young guys trying to learn something that's not possible to play because it's written down wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. So let me pivot a little bit. You mentioned Eric Johnson, so I'm going to go ahead and spin into tone a little bit, because he's kind of known as the tone guy.
Yeah.
And I know you, a number of years ago, you did a tone print. Yeah. And I saw a YouTube video on that. So I'm kind of curious about how you build your tone up and what you would think would be the important things about your electric guitar tone.
Yeah, and of course I have a lot of, like many other musicians, opinions about that. I don't, tell myself that I have all the right answers, but I have the correct answers for myself anyway, and that's what you want to hear, of course. But I like when it's, I don't like a tone to be too sharp. I don't like it. I always, I often get told, when I'm out playing, it sounds great, but could you, like the sound engineer, make it more like, more of the high-end top. I like it when it's a little darker. I like that.
Yeah.
And I know you have to turn the volume up. I know it's all about how it sits in the mix, of course, and it should be. But I just like it a little darker. So I like a good, healthy, clean sound. And I like amps that take pedals well. But I've always, not always, but almost always used a clean channel only, and then pedals. And sometimes stacked after each other. So it could be an overdrive and then a distortion, and then I use either one or the other, or I mix both of them. It's if I'm really going, in there. So I like to keep it very simple. It's not always been like that, but the last many years it's been like that. Yeah.
And do you also stack like your delay and your reverbs as well?
Yeah, I do that actually, and. But nowadays, I'm actually only using one overdrive pedal. It's actually a guy, what's called BK Butler Tube Driver from the States who's selling them. He also did them in the 70s. But I'm using that. And then I had it modified with this guy, Pete Cornish in the UK, who does modifications. It's a nerdy stuff, but he adds a buffer to the signal, and he does so that when you press the pedal, you don't get this pop in the speakers that some pedals give you, and it has something to do with voltage. It has to be zero in the center and stuff like that. He's done a lot of stuff for guys like David Gilmour and Sting and all these kinds. So it's not cheap to have something done over there, but it's really, they are built like tanks. His modifications.
So pretty much individual pedals versus multi-effects platforms most of the time.
Yes.
Is that what you're doing?
Yes, it is. And on many gigs, I'm actually using a digital amp like a Kemper amp.
Oh, okay.
And I'm actually doing that because I found out it's really crazy. I tried to profile my two-rock head, and it's a pretty, I would say, expensive amp, like, I don't know, what, $8,000 or something. But I actually profiled that amp, and I couldn't, the Kemper. And on the clean channel, I couldn't really hear a difference. So
it's so much easier to deal with that way then, isn't it?
I mean, of course, there are situations where I can, because of the sound pressure feels different sometimes. But in many contexts where I play, like in symphony orchestras and theaters, this is the absolutely best solution. I mean, it could be another model also, but this one is great because you can't sit, if you've ever tried it, you can't sit next to 50 violin players and then go. If you do that, they're gonna kill you. I mean, seriously. Yeah, but then they will look at you like, "What's going on? Do you have a speaker? What's that?" I mean, so you have to. That's how it is nowadays, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, completely different application for me. I use, a multi-effects platform and if I need, I usually go direct into the house, but if I need, and I miss a lot of feeling that way, but I just use like an FRFR in front of me as a monitor so that I can not get that horribly compressed stuff back in my ears.
Yes, and I've done that a lot also, flat response speakers and stuff like that. When I'm playing with my trio, when I've used the Kemper there also, because, I mean, I play with in-ear monitoring and stuff like that, so because everything, actually, I hate to say it, but everything sounds better, because I can stand, next to a drummer who's really going at it, and it won't hurt my ears because I got these, in-ear monitors so everything sounds like an album if everyone plays good, of course, but then it sounds great.
Well, it'll sound high quality audio. It's not what goes into whether they sound good or not. Plays good. So let me just ask you, we talked a little bit about influences. I talked about tone. I think you need to have a signature model guitar. You don't have one, do you, yet?
I mean, I've actually had.
Have you?
No, not really. And why I'm hesitating is I have quite a few, over the years, people contact me.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah. Quite a few people contact me. I mean, I don't know how many, maybe 5 or 6, I think.
Wow,
and the problem was that they sent me something and some of them I still have lying around, but they sent me something and we tried to work on some stuff, but it didn't really feel right. Mm-hmm. I mean, what comes absolutely first for me is how an instrument feels and if I like it. I don't care if I get it for free or if I have to pay. I have to like it to make music on it. I mean, but I could, if I should, I could mention. I mean, I would love to have, but those were unfortunately not the ones who contacted me. But I would love to if it was Fender or something like that, something really classical. But it has been a lot of, great brands with great instruments, but just not, exactly.
It didn't get there. Yeah.
No, it didn't actually.
And you just didn't feel good enough about putting your name on it.
No, exactly. And then I've had, of course, some deals with. I've always had that with some companies where I get them at very cheap, the instruments. I get them at a cheap price, and that's of course that's nice. But right now I don't have that guitarist urge to. I need more instruments. I have a lot of instruments here and in another rehearsal room and in my basement, and I can't play all these guitars, Yeah.
And you can't get rid of them, can you?
I sold, I think, some last year and cheap, but I just did it because, I think it's sad. They have to be played, and like so many other people, I think I only really play like 4 of my guitars or something. And all the others, I grab them once in a while where I'm doing some studio stuff because it fits.
Specific you're looking for,
Exactly, yeah.
Like if you need like a 335 or, something like that, you got to have it. But it's interesting. What would be your sort of go-to instruments, your few that you tend to keep coming back to?
Yeah, but it's always my exotic guitars, they're called. Just exotic, yeah. And which I don't know if anyone will get upset with me saying that, but which is quite similar to Sir guitars, actually. And it's just because I have them set up and configured so they can kind of do anything. I mean, if there's something they can't do, it's because I can't do it. I mean, the guitar can do it. So because on some of them, I have this split on the humbuckers, and I have all these stuff, so I can
coil.
So I can play single coil sounds, and I can play rock, and I can do anything. And then I had once, I still have some lying around, some Sirs with that were too modern for me. A guitar needs to be, in my opinion, needs to be, of course, pleasant and nice to play and all that, and the height of the strings needs to fit your liking. But having said that, I like to have a little resistance when I play, because somehow, it can lead to small mistakes now and then, but I don't care. It gives me more feeling, because I have to sometimes fight a little to play a certain line. If a guitar gets too thin, and too smooth and too and you wear it up here or whatever, and then it gets too you have to make it sing. I mean, I can make it sing more if I have to
work at it a bit.
Yeah. So I like that.
Well, you make me think of Working Hard and Stevie Ray Vaughan. And his really heavy gauge strings. That guy used to work at stuff. Oh my goodness.
He's of course a prime example of something really wonderful in that sense that he could really make it sing. I mean,
So what? Let's talk a little bit. As we sort of get closer to the end here, let's talk a little bit about your interest in ethnic music. And you already touched on the sitar, and you touched on the bouzouki, and but in general, what kind of drew you into that, and what are your projects that you're working on related to that these days?
Yeah, I mean, from just normal traveling to playing in different countries, I've heard many great and unknown musicians. I mean, like in all, no matter what you do in life, there are extremely talented people out there. Some of them are known, lesser known, and some of them are like totally unknown, but they can still be great. And I've heard a lot during the years and share their talent and love for their local music and genres. And it could be, for instance, in the Balkan states and some places in Asia. I've been very inspired by their tonality, feeling, and their, for me, different rhythmic traditions. I mean, early on, it caught my ear, and I knew I would, learn a lot from it. Just to broaden my horizon. I mean, it's like learning something new is good, even though also in the cases where you actually don't play it, it just makes if you don't keep on playing, it just makes the fingers and ears do stuff they are not used to. And that's always healthy, I think. And I've had students, for instance, that didn't want to learn stuff like this, but sometimes playing, I think, what you don't like brings you closer to a realization of what you actually like. So, I mean, that could also be a way to narrow down what you like by playing what you don't like, as long as you don't do it all the time, of course.
Yeah. I think exploring at the edges.
Yeah.
We tend to get into a certain comfort area, and discovery happens outside of that comfort area often.
Exactly, yeah. And I remember obviously I live in Odense, Denmark, so we don't have a lot of Indian sitar teachers here. but I actually found one who played the tablas in this town of Odense. And the funny thing about that, I was hiring him. It's maybe 10 years ago. I wanted to have some lessons in some more Indian rhythms because he'd really been into all that. And the first 3 times I was there, he wouldn't even teach me, even though I paid him, because I couldn't. I don't know, I was stiff, like stiff in my body, so I couldn't sit on the floor with my legs crossed. Every time I tried to sit like that with the guitar, I just fell, backwards like this, and he would rise me up again. Yeah, and I had to sit probably because he before he taught me anything. Yeah. So that was a good process. Yeah.
I saw one project you had recently put out there, and I think you recorded it remotely with members of your band. Was it Callista?
Callista. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what instruments were you playing on that?
Yeah, I was playing electric guitar, but also Greek bouzouki.
Did that have 8 strings on it? I'm not really familiar with the bouzouki.
It does have 8 strings. Yeah.
Are they doubled?
Yeah, they are, and 2 of them in octaves. Yeah, and then you have the Irish bouzouki, which I don't have, but you have it's long scale. Yeah.
So what's the tuning? What's the tuning like? Is it?
Yeah, I actually just tune it.
Or?
I just tune it like 1, 2, 3, 4th strings on guitar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can actually fret it.
Yeah, but sometimes it's tuned one whole tone, a whole note below. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So you have a D string instead of an E. But but it's a wonderful instrument also to, for instance, stop an acoustic guitar when you're recording something, like many people are doing with 12-string guitars or whatever. But it has a unique sound, and yeah,
it was clean, but it wasn't brittle, is what I recall. It was clean.
Yes, it is.
Nice cutting, but not too harsh. I mean,
exactly.
Back to your tone statement earlier.
Yeah, and very warm. It's warm sounding in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you played some cello on that. You played electric, obviously, cello, and you played bouzouki. And was it one of your bandmates also played electric? He played some lead lines on there. But
he played
usually play bass. Does he usually play bass with you?
No, he plays. He's a guitar player.
Oh, okay. I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, very good, very skilled guitar player, and I play a lot with him now and then. And then we had a bass player and piano player and the drummer. So
very good. How did you put that together remotely?
Yeah, it was actually it's now we luckily avoided all the talk about coronavirus and stuff like that, because it was in that period. I mean, and everybody was. I mean, in Denmark here we had very strict rules, which has also kept, I have to say, the disease down. But so we couldn't meet up and stuff like that. So I just ran around with an iPad in my house, and all of a sudden I had this very, very simple musical idea, and I just wrote the entire song on my iPad, and then I just harmonized it, and I did a quick demo, and I sent them the score or the demo, and then we just went for it. Yeah.
Did you do it live, or did you all do it separately against another track, and then?
We did it separately against the track, because they
have to sync.
Yeah, exactly.
Record like this music.
Yeah, that would be difficult. Like if we if we played a song now, then it would be difficult. I mean, but they all have the possibility to record at home, so that was a good way to get it out.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. So what's coming up now? So what are you working on? You just came back from tour. I was waiting for you to get back and get settled in.
Yeah.
What's going on now?
But I'm actually working slowly but surely on 2 albums. And one of them is yet another album with my trio, our 3rd album. I'm going to present some ways of playing. Not like never seen before ways, but never seen before when I played it. So I have a lot of things I've never presented for anyone, ways of playing, and more using like a slide or whatever, and playing some chordal tapping and some a lot of stuff that I've done but didn't release. So I'm working on that. And the other thing is I'm working on I've always wanted to do. I mean, one of my, you could say, big idols was also a guy like Paco De Lucia, who played nylon string, obviously. But I'm talking about an acoustic album with acoustic guitar and then piano. I'm working on music for that, just a duo, piano and acoustic guitar. So these are the two things I'm working on right now. So I'm doing I will be doing some teaching also, and some clinics, guitar clinics here and there. And then I'm actually also here in my studio doing some sound engineering for other artists. And then people hire me if they want...
as studio work?
As studio work. It could be guitar, but some now and then it's not guitar, it's cello or whatever. As long as it's something I can play, then I do that a lot actually, and help people produce their music. And then I got I got some theater shows now coming up, and doing a couple of promotional videos for some pedal manufacturers. Yeah.
So, it's interesting. As something again, I picked up that many musicians like yourself who are professional, people have in their mind, the consumer has in their mind that all you do is make albums and play concerts, but you do all different kinds of things to support your craft and to support, moving forward. So often these people, the greats, they're on everyone else's albums. They're supporting the other artists as well. So that's definitely part of the scene. And I think certainly in the last decade or so, as music has gone so much online, and the way you make money, the way it used to be, has completely changed. So I think that's pretty typical, isn't it? I mean, that you would be involved in all different kinds of creative aspects around music.
Yeah, it definitely is. Even though I've never... I mean, the choices I've made are probably made because I couldn't help doing it. I mean, which I think is a good motivation. I mean, I'm managing I think, but I've never gone for the stuff that had the most money in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing instrumental music. Luckily, there are a lot of people who appreciate good quality. I've also heard some women and men, a few guys who said, we don't know if we like it, the music. I mean, who heard a show, it was some of the best thing I've ever heard. I mean, it made me really proud that they thought it had some kind of classical, like in classical music, but classical quality to it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's good that people, even though we live in a world where so many things are fast, and people are looking for fame, young people, and it has to be yesterday. I mean, and I don't care what they are gonna do. They just have to be famous, and rich. So sometimes I think we miss this, getting deeper into stuff. And but I experienced that a lot of people appreciate quality and careful attention to details. And that's, and I really like that.
That's a great message, especially for today. I mean, people are so impatient at arriving at a destination they want. Yeah. That and especially music is a great example because there's this whole idea of mastery. You can be a natural. Maybe things come easier to you or someone else than some other person. But you still have to invest in huge amounts of time, energy, and passion into what you're doing to reach a certain level. And that the journey is really important. It's not so much the destination for people that I have had the pleasure to meet who are, I would say, artists and are masters. That's a really key aspect of it. And you mentioned a little earlier, I'm just going to throw this in here. Another guy I've followed over the years is Phil Keaggy. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I've heard, great player. I know who it is.
Yeah, I mean, he's missing a finger on his hand, his right hand, but yet he has this one, a couple acoustic guitar pieces. He does mostly acoustic stuff. He's an older guy like me, maybe a little older. Crazy looping, loop station stuff. Just crazy, but the whole idea of mastery, and he actually put an album out years ago called The Master and the Musician, and it's all acoustic.
Okay.
It's all acoustic guitar. So, I really resonate with that. I think those projects are going to be great. I know a few piano players if you need them.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah.
Put you together with Michael. But anyway, this has been fantastic. So I'd like to ask you at this point in time, I'll put it in the show notes, but how can people reach you? What's the best way for them to follow you? Just so they hear it. I'll also put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I think, the best thing would be my YouTube channel that I recently reopened. And then I have this Facebook page and Instagram. This would be the most natural stuff, yeah. And on my website, I have this contact form, people who want to get in contact. That's the best place instead of using Messenger and stuff like that, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll be looking really with great interest for your next albums to come out. It's just going to be fantastic. Maybe, when you get a little bit closer to that point in time, maybe you could do a follow-up and talk about what the experience has been like.
Yeah. So,
great. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on Titans of Transition. You certainly are a Titan who have gone through a fabulous musical journey with a number of twists and turns. But it's been a real pleasure for me to get in touch with you. Thanks again for being gracious and being on the show.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me, Joe. And all the best from here.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for joining me today on Titans of Transition. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please check the show notes for additional information. Also, please like and subscribe to this channel.